This time I'll accept the motion to reopen the board meeting.
I'll move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Babbitt.
Second.
Commissioner Scott, all those in favor of reopening, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And motion carries. Thank you. Next up is to approve the minutes from the August 10th, 2021 regular meeting.
I'll move again, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Babbitt. Thank you, Commissioner Skoye. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries. Thank you. Financial business.
Mr. Chair, I will move on the courthouse claims, highway claims, and public health and human service claims.
Thank you, Commissioner Edy.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Murray. Any discussion on the claims? Hearing no discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. And opposed? And motion carries. Thank you. Next is human resource business.
Mr. Chair, I believe that Janelle had a 10 o'clock meeting. She was going to join if possible, but if not, I'm going to go ahead and cover her HR items.
Thank you. I don't see her on.
I don't see her on. So the first one is we're going to approve an employment separation of Shauna Koochiching with an effective date of August 26, 2021, and we're seeking authorization to fill that vacant position within the assigned wage scale.
Make that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Murray.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Edy. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the next item is just a notice of hire, actually, so no board motion is needed. William Jenkinson was hired as a part-time E911 dispatch correction officer, and his start date was August 19th. And we welcome William. And then we do need a board motion on this, and we're going to ask that you approve hiring Brittany Harris as an appraiser clerk with a start date to be determined, and authorize filling the vacant accounting tech 2 position within the assigned wage scale. So Brittany Harris is currently out on leave, and but she has posted internally for the assessor clerk position, and that's a welcome addition to that assessor's office. And so as you know, Nancy took Susie's position, so we're just having a little bit of change. And so the position that Brittany was in formerly was in the environmental services accounting position, and so that position is vacant. And so we're asking you to authorize the hiring of Brittany Harris, and then filling that vacant accounting tech 2 position.
I'll move, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Edy.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Murray. Any discussion on the? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? And motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Jen.
And Mr. Chair, we just have the addition approving the employment separation of Shay Manassa. She was a temporary accounting technician while Brittany was out on some leave, and so she separated as of July 12th, and I just need a board motion to approve that.
Move. Thank you, Commissioner Babbitt.
Well, I'll second mine then.
Oh, excuse me. Thank you, Commissioner Skoye. Accept a second.
I'll second.
Commissioner Murray?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, who had the first one?
Commissioner Skoye? Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Thank you. Next up is to approve the support of a Rainy Lake Medical Center for the Medical Treatment Financial Assistance Program. And from what I understand, this is an update. Everybody had a chance to read this. This kind of provides medical service based on income levels and kind of goes based on what your ability to pay. There's a bunch of different factors that look into it. And this, is, I understand, is a renewal of that.
And Mr. Chair, we may have a representative from Rainy Lake Medical Center on the call. I think that was going to join remotely.
Yes, good morning. This is Melissa Marcotte. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Rainy Lake Medical Center. I also have Sue DeBennett, our Patient Financial Services Director, on the line with me. So thank you for having this on your agenda this morning. And yeah, it was just a renewal. You can see the last time we had the board officially kind of approve and document, that was 2010. So just with the change in our CEO and also change in county officials, felt it was time to just revisit it and ask for the board's acknowledgement of the financial assistance program that we offer here at Rainy Medical Center.
Well, thank you. And the program is working and providing service to people that need it?
It is. It is. We have two financial counselors. They're also MNsure navigators, so they do help in both those areas. We've provided help for over $300,000 in the last couple of years to relieve those that can't afford it care, so they can still have care and not worry about financial implications that could happen.
Any questions for?
Is it?
Yes, Commissioner.
Yeah, this is, of course, a great service for the community. Is the $300,000 a? I guess I don't understand. Is that a state or federal grant that you get, or how does that work?
Nope, it's not. It's our own. It just comes off of our financial statement. We basically have the guidelines, and if the patients meet that criteria, we just forego their balance. But it isn't anything that we then turn around and collect from anybody.
Do you set a limit on that, or is it $300,000 the limit, or is just that's what it would cost the last 10 years?
It averages about, that's over about a 3-year average. Our Board of Trustees establishes a budgeted amount every year of around that $150,000, $175,000 on an annual basis. And if we were to cap that in any year, we would need our Board of Trustees to authorize any amount over that, but we typically stay right around that average on an annual basis.
Okay, that's great. That's a great thing you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions? I will accept a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Murray. Second. Thank you, Commissioner Pavlik. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? And motion carries.
Great program, thank you.
Thank you, yes.
All right, thank you for your time.
It's helped a lot of people.
Up next is to adopt resolution approving the Family Home Prevention and Assistance Program.
Mr. Chair, again, I believe we have a representative from Koochiching here. Roseanne?
Yeah, this is, I'm Roseanne Casey. I'm the Program Director for Crisis Services, which includes homeless prevention, which is what this grant falls under. This is our biennial grant from Minnesota Housing for family homeless prevention. And we are required with this grant to get a board approval from every county that we do business in with this grant. Itasca supports Koochiching and Itasca County, and we partner with AEOA to cover Lake and Cook. So we did get a 5% reduction in our award this biennium. So totally, we will have $396,200 to cover all 4 counties. It's going to be a stretch, but we endeavor to serve our clients the best way we can with whatever money we receive.
May I ask, this provides kind of a emergency shelter as well in certain circumstances?
No, it does not. It is basically just rent assistance with case management. We do not provide shelter. You may be thinking of our transitional housing program, which is a completely different funding stream. This is strictly rent assistance, security deposit, a little bit of transportation money if a client needs some emergency car repair work, but the majority of it is rent assistance and case management.
Thank you.
We've held this grant with Minnesota Housing for, I want to say, probably 20 years, more than that maybe. It's been a long time.
Accept the motion, yes, Commissioner.
Hello, this is Commissioner Murray. I got a question. Is that $396,000, does that run out or does that pretty well cover it for the period of time?
Oh, we will run really close to it. Part of the arrangement with Minnesota Housing with this grant is that we are to manage our money appropriately. So we only spend enough money every quarter to meet the quarter's needs. So we do watch our expenses very carefully, and that we're held to that by Minnesota Housing. But by the end of the biennium, it's really getting to be thin. We do the best we can to serve as many people as we can, but with rising rent costs and the number of people seeking assistance, it's difficult. And I'm not going to lie, this biennium coming up will be more difficult because we'll have more people needing assistance and essentially less money to help them with. But we try to get creative whenever we can. We have good relationships with a lot of our landlords, so they know that if we are working with a client, they're more willing to forgive a little or to give a little bit more time, and that's a really good thing to have.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
You're welcome. Does anybody have any other questions?
Just want to thank you very much for your services, Koochiching. I don't know what we'd do without you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I know from working with other CAP agencies that they're not lucky enough to have relationships with their counties as we are with ours. So we thank you as well for supporting us and for doing what you can do to help out.
Thank you, Roseanne. Any other questions? I will accept a motion to adopt the resolution.
Move.
Thank you, Commissioner Pavlik.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Ady. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
The next item is to adopt resolution approving airport federal grant.
We'll move it for discussion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Pavlik.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Murray. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Well, obviously, it's a great benefit to us, but what I did notice, if you notice on the bottom portion there, it said that it'd be available for signatures by September 8th, I'm reading that, 8 or 6th, and due back to the FAA by the 7th. I mean, that would be awfully hard to accomplish if it came that late on the 6th. I'm just wondering why they put that in there like that. But
I am not sure.
anyway, I just want to make a note of that because that could be an issue, and maybe putting my hat on as a chairman out there, maybe Kyra could check into this for us because that's the only thing that bothers me. That'd be an awfully tight timeline.
Well, I was looking at it, I noticed that as well, and I was looking at it as the grant should be available for signatures by or before.
Language is very.
Mr. Chair.
Having said that, it's critical that we get this. I mean, we're talking a lot of issues there in that 422 project. There's even some other issues that have come up recently that we're going to
Mr. Chair, I just have one. There was a comment at one change, actually. The grant number changed from that 0043-36 is actually going to be -037. So you know that is going to change. And I think all the signatures are being done electronically, which does help to speed things up. So Jason, I think you usually sign those. Okay.
Yeah, whenever it gets here, we'll take care of it.
All right.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion passes. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Come on in.
Are we safe? That's a question.
I think those two could go at that table there. And
Chris and
you
Troy,
guys can pull up a chair if you'd like.
I'll kind of stay in the back. Well, I can kind of introduce. This is Chris and Troy. They're both from the Department of Corrections. About a month ago, we received a letter from the Department of Corrections that they intend to designate us as a Class 2 90-day jail starting January 1st, 2022. So I invited the Department of Corrections up here just to kind of explain to the board, if you had any questions, what that the basis behind the letter, why we received the letter, and what that means for us going forward and the impact it's going to have on, potential on the county. But just kind of open it up so you guys can ask the DOC any questions, and you hear it from them and not from me.
Thank you, Aaron. Welcome, gentlemen.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess we received notice here of that here, and I see we have our consultant online as well, Kent. Just kind of backtrack a little bit. We're kind of in the midst of a facility study right now, so certain types of things are hopefully going to line up to where we can introduce some improvements and stuff to kind of get us on track. But if you want to explain a little bit how you come up with your findings and just how we can move forward, we appreciate that.
Certainly. Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Thank you for having us. So I was the inspector of record for York County. I'm no longer that inspector. Troy will be taking over here very shortly, Troy Okerlund. Actually, it's already officially, just haven't done an inspection yet. So based on my inspection findings, which I think you guys are all aware of, have you all received a copy of that report? There were actually very few operational concerns. There were some things that need to be corrected, and Troy and Carrie will be working on those to get them up to the level of compliance. But none of them were to the point where operationally I thought there was a big concern with your facility. The concern comes with the physical plant, and I'm sure you're all aware the building was built back in 1980 or 1981 maybe. So we're looking at just over 40 years, and National Institute of Corrections places the life expectancy of a correctional facility at 25 to 30 years. It's not my number. That's somebody with a lot more intelligence than I do that runs all those and kind of comes up with a facility that's being operated 24/7, 365 by people that don't want to be there. Doesn't tend to last as long as, say, a room like this. So with that information, along with some specific information about the physical plant, heaving floors, doors that don't necessarily operate the way they should, some of the locks are not adequated. They're having a difficult time coming up with replacement parts. They're just not available for locking mechanisms. The shifting of the building has also caused cracks in glazing. Some of that has been replaced. They've done a nice job at kind of going through my report and correcting those deficiencies that they can. But there are other issues with glazing. Some of the jams that actually hold those windows are kind of suspect with the age of 40 years of rust and deterioration. Are they going to meet the penetration rating at 60 minutes? Maybe, maybe not. It would take a structural engineer to look at it, but I just called it suspect in my report. There are also other issues. I sent a private security letter to the sheriff. Since this is open, I don't necessarily want to discuss that, but it had to do with the perimeter of the facility. with access and egress. If you want to know a little more about that, you can speak with the sheriff in maybe a non-public setting, but that's not information that I want to put out in a public forum. So given all of that, along with we had some issues this summer with ventilation, the HVAC is starting to show signs of age, and really the entire building, after 40 years, your infrastructure, the cast iron plumbing, your electrical, your HVAC, all those support features, they're going to deteriorate over time, and we're at that point. So after I wrote the report, I did have a conversation with my superiors in the DOC. We had a discussion about a sunset for the facility. I did not feel at this time that sunset would necessarily be appropriate. It was discussed. Excuse me. But I do think something had to change. The design of the facility, aside from the physical plant issues and the deterioration, the design back in 1980 doesn't account for meeting a lot of the rules that the DOC has in Chapter 2911. The programming and recreation that should be available to inmates, there's just not space. Your facility doesn't have the physical location to have recreation. There's a small room that they can do programming in, but that room's also used for a myriad of other items. So moving you from a Class 3 jail facility to a Class 2 lockup facility doesn't change a lot other than one item. So instead of being able to hold inmates for a year, you would only be allowed to hold inmates for 90 days. The other requirements are very, very similar to a Class 3 jail. You still are going to be required to have programming and recreation. When Troy comes to do your next inspection, you're still going to be in this facility. The next inspection will still show that you are deficient, that even though you're a Class 2 facility, you do not have recreation space, you do not have adequate programming space, you do not have adequate storage, your intake is too small. All those features on the design of the facility are still there. And a lot of these were actually called out by Tom Weber and ICS. I did get a copy of that report as well. It was well done. And I appreciate that the county is actually taking those steps and looking into the future to determine what your needs are. I would just encourage you to continue that process because, as I said, I think this is a mitigation step, moving to a Class 2 facility. It will allow you to continue to operate while you also look at what options you have. Sunset is something that's been discussed and is a possibility to happen in the future. I don't have a timeline for you exactly, but it's not going to be 10 years from now. It's probably not even going to be 5 years from now. But I wanted you to have that additional step of moving to a Class 2 facility while you are still in a process of determining what the needs are of the county. Do you have any specific questions as to my letter or my inspection report? That was kind of a summary, and I could continue talking, but I want to make sure I'm actually hitting points that you guys are interested in hearing. So if you have any questions, please.
When you say sunset, what is that?
Sunset would be a date that we would work with the sheriff and determine at what point you would no longer be licensed by the Department of Corrections to operate your current facility.
Period, okay.
Yep.
Right.
I did not want to start with that step. I thought this step is a good intermediate step of moving to a Class 2 facility. But at some point, based on the deterioration of your building, the design of your building, again, operationally, I think you're doing well. The things that are out of the control of the jail administrator and her staff are the things that are really causing most of the problem. And I think this is a good intermediate step rather than going straight to, we're no longer going to license you as of such and such a date.
Question, please, from ICS. If the doors and windows are corrected and if the HVAC is replaced, those could be substantial spends by the county. Will that have any impact on the sunset time frame for the jail?
It could have minimal impact. As my report indicated, the largest reason, I guess, for the move to a Class 2 and eventually a sunset has to do more with the design of the facility and the lack of space for inmate recreation and inmate programming. Without actually adding space in, correcting those items may get you a little ways down the road, not very far, and then you'd have to try and balance, is that amount of time worth the investment that you're going to put into a building that is eventually not going to be suitable for use as a licensed facility. So that's something that I think you should, when I had a conversation with the sheriff earlier, I think you keep all the options on the table and you continue to study and look. And Kent from ICS can give you a lot of input. They've got a lot of knowledge. They've done this in other facilities and can kind of steer you. But I think doing the physical plant corrections could be expensive, and in addition, it doesn't correct the largest deficiency, which is the lack of programming space and recreation for inmates. So I hope that answered your question, Ken.
Yes, it did. I wanted for clarity. I mean, we look at 5 and 10-year windows. If you're going to make upgrades in the facility, you want to have at least 5 years to, I guess, get your payback on it, or 10 years on your payback on it. And if substantial investment will not get the county an additional 5 or 10 years, then there should not be substantial investment. Obviously, maintenance and operations has to continue at a high level, but you would not want to drop millions into this building with the expectation that the sunset will be moved down the road.
Correct. And my recommendation would be based on that lack of recreation space, lack of programming space. Again, this decision will ultimately be the decision of the Commissioner of Corrections, but my recommendation based on my inspection reports and being in the facility would be that I don't know that you have 5 to 10 years to recoup that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
My question or concern is what happens, obviously we have people that are longer than 90 days. What happens when we hit that 90-day window with the people we have?
So your administrator has already done some work on that. She's identified other facilities, so those inmates would have to be transferred to a facility that is licensed to hold people for up to a year or longer if they're pretrial, and that comes at a cost. Generally, that cost in the state of Minnesota is anywhere from $55 to $60 per day per inmate.
And space is not always available. I mean, I work on corrections there in Duluth. So.
Yeah, I think the way she was talking earlier was that they are looking at the potential of going, anywhere from 2 to 3 hours away before they can find a facility that actually has space available to put your inmates into.
So I just want you folks to be aware, we're talking big money here when you start moving, just like in corrections, I see it all the time. So.
And as you're aware, then there's court proceedings that they'll need to be transported to and from.
Yeah. Very costly.
Is there a requirement as to how much space you need for the programming or recreation?
So the current 2911 is the rule for operating jails. 2900 is the rule for jail construction. In that construction rule, it requires 1,000 square feet of space for recreation. If you have a decentralized recreation space, that space can be reduced if you have multiple recreation spaces attached to different units. It all depends on the design of your facility. But yeah, we would be looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 square feet to actually recreate. When I interviewed an inmate during my last inspection, the inmate had done some calculations on his own and figured that the current room that is used for programming and rec would take him 100 laps to walk a mile. It'll give you an idea of how small that room actually is. So yeah, it's roughly 1,000 square feet, Commissioner.
When you say 1,000 square feet, is that per inmate or?
No, that is for the facility. 1,000 square feet, not per inmate.
Okay, how many inmates would that work for?
All the ones that you have. You're currently licensed to 30, it would adequately do 30. The issue comes operationally, and Carrie's aware of this, with classification separation. You can't put all the inmates in there at one time.
Right.
To put them in based on their classification.
Yep.
So it gets utilized for many hours during the day based on the different groups of people that would go in there at one time.
Okay, thank you.
Well, or if I could, Mr. Chair, I mean, I think NERC would be an option for somebody, especially the non-violent offenders, but when we're looking at the other classifications, it's going to be quite costly. Actually, we just finished redoing NERC. I mean, that was a huge project.
NERC was, the project that they did at NERC was part of the, they actually put in a secure unit there. They had kind of a need for that type of an area for those minimum security inmates that went there, but then ultimately ended up with disciplinary or behavior problems. Instead of shipping them back to the county, they would, and that facility is actually quite small. I don't know if you've been in the secure part of NERC, but it's pretty significantly, it's smaller than what your jail is now.
What is unique about NERC is all the outside availability
and the programming that's available. It has one of the most robust programming components of any jail in the state.
Been very successful. In fact, we have people come from all over the country to visit that facility. Yeah. But anyway, it's an eye opener, and I'm just letting you guys know we're talking a lot of money here.
Even NERC though is 3 hours away, so whereas I mean the nearest jail, it doesn't matter which direction you go, you're looking at I mean whether it's meets the standards or not, the nearest jail period is 2 hours away. So whatever direction you want to go.
Yeah, geographically, that is another hurdle for you and the sheriff to determine, what is best for the county.
Unless you let us take them to Canada,
We should get a break on the fee.
And the date for the 90-day facility, is that a pretty solid date for at the end of this year?
Yeah, I think that's ample time to allow the sheriff and the jail administrator to make the appropriate changes to the facility so that as of January 1, you should be able to continue to operate without any hiccups. Because as I said earlier, the differences between a Class 3 jail and a Class 2 lockup, the most significant difference is that time period, that 90-day. Otherwise, operationally, there's very few differences. So I don't think you need a lot of time to make that transition. I think that's a good date. January, I think, is when I was talking with the administrator and the sheriff, that they were comfortable with that date and they'd be able to make the transition by then.
So you're saying 5 years, just as a guess, but let's say we started moving in that direction and then 2 years from now or 3 years from now, we have everything ready to build, but it's not going to be able to be finished for some reason within a period of time, which you would like us to see. Would you close it then, or would you give us a little more time?
It's a lot of theoretical questions.
Well, I'm sure that's happened in the past, hasn't it? In other counties, maybe not.
It has. I think a lot of it depends on what steps have been taken. Have there been board resolutions to do A, B, and C? Has construction started? Has, in some cases, construction doesn't start. In some cases, the determination of the county board is to not have a jail. Now, in this remote area, maybe that's not a possibility, but really that's going to be up to you guys to make that determination. The DOC will never come in and tell you that you have to build. We're simply concerned with the licensing of your current facility. And then we're here also to give you recommendations and advice on what we know. I have a background. I was a jail administrator in Chisago County. I spent 21 years working for the sheriff's office there prior to starting with the DOC after retirement, if you can call this retirement. And there's a wealth of knowledge with the inspectors. We get around to see the entire state, and we're here really to help you with that process. We can give you recommendations, but ultimately our authority is only on the licensure of your current facility as it pertains to the current rule. As many of you are aware, Some statutory language was recently passed at the legislature. It is now law. The Commissioner of Corrections has been directed to re-promulgate the rule. The direction given has 17 specific items that need to be rewritten into the rule. Many of those have to do with medical and mental health. We have until August of 2022 to have that completed, and it's anticipated that it will be completed by then. What that does for your jail, your sheriff, and your administrator is it raises the hurdle even a little higher. It's going to add additional requirements. And at this point, we're statutorily obligated to do that, so I can't really change it. I can tell you that we'll be working with the Minnesota Sheriff's Association as well as other interested parties on the writing of the rule and what it's going to look like, but ultimately it is going to add additional requirements that the sheriff will have to meet.
You're from the government, here to help us, right?
Not the first time I've heard that, Commissioner. In this case, though, I am actually here to help, and I can tell you I will provide you with as much advice and recommendation as I can. I do like to say that the rule is the rule, and we have to work to what we can do to get you to be in compliance with the rule. And on the other hand, are all my recommendations. You don't have to listen to any of those. So.
Oh, go ahead.
Excuse me, another question from ICS. If an appropriate recreational facility is added to the current jail, could you give me an estimate of what percent of the requirements for a continued 365-day use would be met, and would you recommend doing that or not?
I'm not a structural engineer. I think it's something that could be looked at and discussed. If that were to be added, there are other features in the facility that would also need to be corrected. I guess one of the biggest concerns I have is the heaving floors, the sagging ceilings, the locks. There's a significant amount of repairs that we need to be done in addition to adding that space. So I can't really give you a percentage number that you're asking for, but I can tell you that it's not the only thing that would be needed in order to continue operations as a Class 3 facility.
And I'm just trying to clarify whether or not investment in the existing jail could be a long-term solution, or again, are we looking at again, you have mental health issues, you have other shortcomings in the jail. Even if we were to correct the recreational facility shortcoming, would that add any significant life to the jail, given requirements that are in place now and requirements that you see being put in place in the next three to 5 years?
I guess I'm not in a position to answer that question. That's actually going to be more, well, it's actually more in your ballpark as far as doing those studies and to make those determinations on what those costs would be to come into compliance. But I really I'm not in a position that I would be able to tell you yes or no or give you a number.
Yeah, and again, we can certainly get the county the physical numbers for the adjustments, but what we can't give the county direction on is will it buy them enough time to be a good investment. So that's what my line of questioning is about.
Okay. Well, if you bring it into compliance, and I don't know what that dollar amount would be, but if you were to provide the recreation space, the program space, correct the physical plant deficiencies, you could operate indefinitely under that scenario. But how much does that cost? You know, that's really up to you guys to make that determination. Ultimately, we're looking for compliance, and if you were to do that, then yeah, that's not it's not an issue. I mean, compliance is compliance. If you're meeting the standard, then absolutely you continue to move on.
And could you touch a little bit on the current cell types and cell structure that's in the jail? We're currently at a 30-bed facility. Unfortunately, society is changing, and the classifications and designations that exist today or will exist tomorrow did not exist in 1980 when the jail was built. Do you see the impact of the number 30 going down if the current jail is kept as is and appropriate remediations made for the other pieces that you've brought up.
So it's a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. The design of the facility being linear does not provide for very good sight lines. It is not the safest for staff to work in. It's not the safest for inmates to be housed in. The one upside to the linear design is it does provide a little bit more of classification separation versus a remote modular direct supervision model. However, I think the downside, especially in this facility where you have special management still has bars on doors and some of the walls that offer ligature points. Those are things that were okay in 1980 but would never be authorized in today's world. So does it meet the rule? Yes. Is it recommended a best practice? Absolutely not.
Do you see any impact with, and I realize, again, this is looking into the future, but do you see rules, changes that are currently in place or coming that will reduce the number of inmates that the county is currently able to house?
Well, I can't speak to your county specifically, but if I were going to recommend anything writing the rule, there are some changes that I would recommend. I can't say whether the commissioner would promulgate those rules, but in a 60-bed direct supervision unit, I think we have found over time that that is no longer a viable solution. That's too many inmates to the single officer that's in there. I would recommend that number be reduced. I would recommend that the 1 to 25 officer to inmate ratio for linear design would also be changed to be increased. And that'd be because of the poor sight lines in a linear design. It's much more difficult to manage an inmate population with the linear design being that you can't see all the inmates at one time. But again, these are recommendations, and depending on what the culture is at the state level and who's actually giving the ultimate authority, which currently is the commissioner and the governor, I can't tell you, I don't have that crystal ball to say which way it would go.
No, and I appreciate your comments, because the concern is always with the overall operation and costs of the jail. And really, if you go from a 30-bed down to a 25 or a 20-bed because of rule changes, obviously that'll impact, and you'll end up transporting prisoners at that point too. So just from a general information standpoint, the 1980 jail has deficiencies now according to regulation, but there's probably additional deficiencies which haven't been identified by the commissioner yet, which will be in the future. So that's kind of the point I was kind of bringing up, or hoping that you could expound on.
Yeah, that potential exists, but I can't be very specific on what those would be.
Correct, yes. No, thank you.
If I could, Mr. Chair. Yes. Are you seeing any examples out there of counties sharing a facility that are close now?
Pending.
Well, currently there's Norman, Polk, and Red Lake all share a facility that is located, I believe, in Polk County. That is one example. The other two examples are more of the regional type jails that are shared, like NERC, for instance, or north. You have Northwest, which is the Polk, Red Lake, and Norman facility, and then you have NERC, which is a 5-county.
I'm sorry.
Those are the only two that I'm aware of.
Okay. I mean, obviously Matt is efficient for the courts, but I've been approached in the past by a neighboring county who are getting help. Their facility's getting old too, and have brought that up. I just was curious if it's feasible.
And I think it's an option that you can obviously put on the table and vet out and determine, is that going to be viable for our county?
Transportation become an issue in a multi-county system?
I think it can. Again, it's going to be a study to determine, what those costs are and where that facility would be located and who's going to sit on that board. And sure.
Yes, but in Red Lake County, it's not even a quarter the size of our county, so, that's the physical size of this county.
Well, we appreciate you making the trip up here and talking with us and letting us know, and we appreciate your reports too. It does provide room for improvement, and I know we all appreciate that, and we are. Hopefully, I feel we're being proactive. I feel a sense of proactivity with our board, at least moving forward. Knowing that we have some issues that we got to kind of resolve. So, got to kind of get the cards lined up to take care of a few other things, too, and beyond. I know you understand that. So.
Well, I appreciate the county being proactive, and I think that's actually one of the main reasons. Having gone through this study, working with ICS, working with Tom Weber, having those steps taken prior to my report and my inspection, that's probably one of the reasons that we're not talking about a sunset right now. So.
Well, I think we all have that in the back of our minds. We have to move forward. Like Commissioner Pavlik said, there's lots of options to look at too. So, if there's something that we can mitigate that works for more than one county, or if we are isolated, more isolated, like Commissioner Skoyer says, that's something that we can kind of move forward on too. So.
As a side note, I travel around this region and speak with inmates all around the region, and all of them have complimentary things to say about the sheriff and the staff here, so that's something you can be very proud of. I don't know if you want to be recruiting people for your jail like that, but people are very very complimentary, and I don't hear that everywhere. I hear that here, though, so that is something to be proud of, and be proud of your staff.
We'll have to put an ad in the paper.
Yeah.
Well, and I can reiterate it. Operationally, there are some very minor things that need to be done, but the sheriff and jail administrator are doing a fair job here with what they're given. They can't obviously fix those physical plant issues, but operationally, I think you're doing well.
I was around here in '81 when that went up, and it was state of the art at the time. Yeah. Jim Laurent was kind of the gatekeeper too. A lot of characters. Things just don't last in that. I know what you're saying. 24/7. They take the meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, not.
Well, that was before the internet. That was before a lot of things.
Yeah,
too.
that's for sure.
Well, thank you very much.
Chairman, thank you. Commissioners.
Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for hanging in there with us. Next up, we have Nathan and land enforcement business.
Yeah, so the first item here is to set a public comment period in a public meeting for our draft forest management plan updated document that we will put out, we'll post on our website here soon. So.
And you have that set for?
Yeah, so the public comment that we would take written public comment on the document would be from August 30th to October 12th, and then we would like to set a meeting on the plan for October 12th at 1:30 in the third floor courtroom if folks have questions that they'd like to ask there as well. So.
And after that, then there could be some modifications to the plan.
Yeah, depending on what kind of feedback we get.
Would you like a motion for it to set the date?
Yes.
I will now accept a motion to set the date of public comment from August 30th through October 12th, 2021, and set a public meeting for October 12th, 2021 at 1:30.
What day is that? What day is that?
It's a Tuesday, October 12th.
Tuesday?
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Swin.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Murray. Any comments? Sir? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? and motion carries. And the meeting will be set for October 12th, 2021 at 1:30 in the third line on the third floor courtroom. My apologies.
President Biden called it.
Yeah. Here, you can talk about it. And we had a timber auction recently.
The good part here.
Yep, so this is just an informational item. We do this after every timber auction, review the results with the board. This is the results from our August 4th timber auction that was held down in Big Falls. We sold just under 26,000 cords of timber for a total value of just under $623,000. So prices were down a little bit from our second quarter auction in May, but they're pretty much in line with where we were a year ago at our August 2020 auction. So
You get a lot of people at the August, I guess?
we were down a little bit. We had, I think at the May auction, we had roughly 35 bidders that's actually registered and signed in. I think at this auction we were probably in that right around 30, so we had a handful less, and sometimes that's all it takes to kind of change the tone of things. So
I see trucks moving steady.
all of the mills are, from what I understand, all of the mills are still looking for wood, and I'm a little bit surprised with how dry it is that we haven't had more activity on our permits, but maybe as we go into fall here, that activity will pick up a little bit. So it actually is a little bit too dry out there, obviously. So the recent precipitation and cooler temps that we're going to get here are going to help things out, I think. So
There's always that fire danger.
Yeah.
Kind of climate.
All the tracks sold?
Yes, all of the tracks sold during the auction. We had one track that in the intermediate that sold as a regular, but everything sold. So.
Any questions for Nathan?
No, we still like you, Nate.
All right.
You say.
Nathan, how's our timber prices compared to other counties in the region?
I mean, it varies. If you're looking at Aspen, that's the big one that everybody kind of sells. St. Louis County just had an auction last week. I think our prices were pretty close on average to what they experience. If you get over into some of the counties like Hubbard County, they see a little higher price probably on average than we do, but they have a lot better ground too. I mean, their soils, they can harvest those sales, probably 10 months out of the year.
Yeah.
So this is abnormal for us to have these kind of conditions for operating sales. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
No, thank you, Nate.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good morning.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty good.
Good.
Morning, Dave.
Good morning. Well, today I'm here to talk about repairs on the pedestrian bridge along Highway 11. Basically, this bridge is on the bike trail that follows Highway 11 over Second Creek. The bridge is a timber structure supported by steel piers that was constructed in 1978. And over the past few years, we've replaced a number of the boards. We recently obtained a quote for the materials to replace the entire deck, and that was for $19,390. If we do replace the boards, what we'd also do is coat the underside, the top side of the stringers or the beams that go across. And we've also seen about a 5-inch settlement on the northeast pier. And if you go over the bridge, you can see the rails are bowed out a little bit, and we'd probably lift that up. We don't know why the pier is sinking, and we're watching it. We're basically going out there and doing elevation shots twice a year right now to see how much it's moving. It hasn't moved much in the last year, so that's a good sign. But we'd lift it up and re-level it. Right now there's a conveyor belt that runs over to the top of it, right down the center, and we believe that has deteriorated the boards more quicker, sealing in that moisture. So when we go replace these deck boards, we would not put that back. I don't know what the original purpose of that conveyor belt. It was probably due to studs on snowmobiles, or it could have been there for inline skaters, but we don't think it's a good thing to have on the top of the deck there to trap that moisture in. And we figure we do it with county staff, and we estimated basically 3 guys 1 week to get it done. The goal of this project is to extend the life of that structure for another 10 to 20 years. We recently utilized, and that's why we haven't brought it up ahead of time, we basically use some advanced timber testing equipment, and it allows you to drill into, with a very small drill bit, drill in and measure the resistance. And what we wanted to do is make sure, you know, the boards that we put on, that the beams are still sound, and they appeared sound by the testing that we did. So we think if we redeck it, recoat it, we'll get another 10 to 15 years out of that bridge. We also talked to MnDOT because they have a bridge right next to it, and if you've ever seen how narrow that is, and it was, I'm just thinking that, you know, MnDOT has on the east end of Highway 11, they've made that nice bike ramp on both sides of the bridge. On the north, it's on the north side on both of them by Tilson Bay and stuff, and we assume that's kind of what they'll do in the future, and we'd petition to have them do that. But they have indicated that that's probably 15 to 20 years out. So we'd like to go ahead and replace the decking boards and hopefully, you know, get that done this fall or early next spring, depending on the availability of the boards. And we'd get the boards, the planking, basically from the original manufacturer of the bridge, Wheeler. And I've got a quote in there, and it's basically $19,000. And then we're going to have to get the hardware, of course, the screws, and that's estimated about $2,000. We'll look to see if we can get them cheaper. But so that's what I'd like to go ahead and get your approval on. Basically, we've got local road projects that this would pay for. We set up some money to the side for local roads, and that's what we'd like to take care of.
If I could, Mr. I mean, I would strongly support this. You know, I drive through there more than twice a day, every day. The traffic has increased so much, and I think a lot of it's rain-air improvements and all the other things that pertain out there. And the walking traffic, it's amazing how many people are walking that. It's increased every year. I mean, I've watched it over time. And I know there's some bad. Yeah.
And now you see a lot of e-bikes on it too.
Yeah. So I mean, I would certainly support this or offer a motion anyway.
I guess long-term our goal would be to make a bridge similar to what's on the east end and route the traffic onto a concrete structure, but that's going to be off a ways.
Yeah. Yes.
I went and looked at that when I saw this. I don't usually walk up and down there. It's too far. But
did you see the boards that were replaced?
Yeah, I looked at everything. I was looking at all they said. I was wondering why they had that rubber thing down the middle. Yeah.
The bikers don't like it.
I wouldn't think so.
And the runners really don't like it. No. And so the people I've talked to, the only concern I've been is, well, that might make it a little tougher on the inline skaters. We propose to use wider boards this time. And, you know, you never know how much the board's going to shrink, but using wider boards should help it for even the road bikers. They don't like concrete. I mean, they got 90 PSI in the tires. They don't want to see any cracks. But we replaced the boards with wider boards. That'll be easier to do, be less boards to place. And it's also concerning that it's tilted over time. And we just noticed that in the last year and a half. Try to lift it up. It doesn't seem to be moving any further right now. Supposedly it was pinned down to the rock.
I always, or if I could, Mr. I always wondered if that rubber wasn't for traction for the winter walkers. I mean, I didn't know, I've never known.
What I've seen on rubber is it's usually slippery when you get some snow on your boots. So
I did notice when I was walking out there along the bike trail, and I don't know if it's I'm thinking it's the county's responsibility, but you know how you fill in cracks when it spreads from winter? There was at least one spot that a tire could easily go into that. So I don't know, I noticed that you fill those cracks in from time to time. I'm just wondering, you guys must check that periodically. I don't know if that's even the county responsibility.
You know, the boards, the bridge is aged. I mean, it's a timber structure, and you can see the wood grain. And when I was out there, I got a little sliver on my hand, and it's just going to happen. Yeah.
No, I mean the blacktop.
Oh, the blacktop? Yes.
Coming up to it, I've seen. You know, there's always cracks from our weather, but there was one I thought, geez, a bike ever got stuck in there. Yeah. Flip bike, but
over time, there is even more pronounced cracks when you get.
Hard to get away from that.
We need to do a crack sealing project on that eventually.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Well, again, I'll move, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Nevlik. Thank you, Commissioner Bree. Any other discussion or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have somebody we can pick on. Okay. One thing about Matt, he's resilient.
Good morning, Matt.
Good morning.
You think real estate was bad? Try building a sewer project. Huh?
Well, I was going to say, this is look like the end of the day for this part of it up there, so.
Yeah, this would be related to closing out contract A. Yep, that's what we're dealing with. What we have is a couple change orders which are shown in this information. They're the last change orders as we close out the contract. Need a new change order number 12, adjust the contract for miscellaneous county expenses during contract day construction. Total reimbursement to the county is $7,421.28. I would also like to request the board rescind board motion 2021-0142 and approve change order number 13, which adjusts the overall construction contract amount to reflect actual quantities versus the engineer's estimated quantities related to the construction of the Island View sanitary sewer system within contract A. The old motion from January did not reflect the reimbursement of the county's miscellaneous expense adjustment of that $7,421.28. That's in new change order number 12. Change order 13 is reflective of the miscellaneous county expenses. All amounts within the change order have previously been paid, less any retainage, and the attached information documents the quantities. And I've reviewed it with the engineer and recommend the approval of the change orders.
These are all with contract A?
This is all contract A, yep.
I'll move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Bentley.
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Ady. Any discussion?
If I could, Mr. Chair, Matt deserves a lot of credit. He was out there day and night for hours, let alone in the winter, working on this, along with all his other projects. So it's been quite an ordeal, and he did a great job for us.
Well, it's nice to get one more contract closed out, and so.
Glad to get the other one.
Yeah, we would one step at a time, right?
Yeah.
And you had to deal with that commissioner in that area.
Oh, yeah. That was the tough part.
Oh.
How easy being easy, isn't it? Matt's done a great job for us.
Thank you, Matt. Any other discussion? Not hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? And motion carries. Thank you.
And as a footnote, I mean, he calls me up 10 o'clock at night, and he's still out there working on this or that. And what do you think? What do you think about this? Well, not much. I'm in bed, but
Glad he called
no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Put a lot of hours into that project. So.
Well, there's still a little more to do, but we'll get there.
People, they appreciate it.
Yeah. So this next item is the final authorizing the final closeout documents for contract A and authorize the final payment of the remaining retainage in the amount of $92,578.73 to Wagner Construction. The project engineers have reviewed the work associated with Contract A and have submitted a final statement that all work has been completed per the contract and recommends the final remaining retainage payment. The documents submitted also include the final statement, the pay application, contractor's affidavit, mechanic lien waivers, and the bonding company consent to final payment. The 2-year warranty period is in effect for items that may be found defective within the project, and I would recommend closing out the contract.
Move. Thank you, Commissioner Pavlik.
I'll second.
Thank you, Bernie. Just one question. The 2-year warranty period, is that effective from the date of the signature?
No, it would be effective when each item would have a period of time based on when it was completed. So, yeah.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, who made the second on that? You did, okay, thank you.
Commissioner Murray.
Thank you. If there's no other discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? And motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And the next item is to discuss Koochiching County water resource discussion. And we have Mr. Koochiching here. He has written a petition us to meet and discuss this item. And with the current situation of drought going on right now, it's probably pretty appropriate. So I know their lake levels out west are hundreds of feet low or over 100 feet low in certain areas. And I know
well, like Mead is down big time.
Big time here. I know our situation here is kind of increasing too with some of the lake levels, river levels. All the inlets coming into it are nearly dry, if not dry.
Yep.
So yeah, it's definitely a worthy discussion for this time. So we appreciate you coming in here and kind of explaining what's going on.
Well, I can certainly give you my part of it.
Okay.
My name is Tony Jackson. I'm a lifelong resident of Koochiching County. I also have property, 2 properties on Little Fork River. Been hunting and fishing both Big Fork and Little Fork since the early 70s. So I had the normal water appreciation like any Minnesotan. We got plenty of it. Well, over the last 12 years, I've been working power hydros, Minnesota, Kentucky, Tennessee, which is part of the TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority. I've been working in Arizona on their water system, where they pump water from Lake Havasu all the way to Phoenix and then on to Tucson. They have 300 miles of concrete dike, 22 miles of underground pipe, and that's the contractor I'm working with. We're recoating the underground piping. Down there, of course, what you're talking about is Lake Mead is more than 100 foot below level. Lake Mead is the controlling reservoir on the Colorado River. There's the Powell Reservoir, there's the Havasu, which is Parker Dam. All of them are being restricted on the amount of water. Right across from Lake Havasu, where the Mark Wilmer pumping plant pumps water to Arizona, there's a big pumping plant, about, again, half as big, pumping to California. Both of them pumping plants are limited on the amount of acre-foot gap. That's how they measure the water, acre-foot. So they're getting limited. So, like in Arizona, they're talking about no more water on the golf courses, and no more water in the lawn. And of course, Arizona is one of them places, if you're not watering it, it's not green. Currently, I'm working in the Grand Coulee Dam up in eastern Washington. Of course, that's high desert. If they're not watering it, it's dead. And the extremes difference with what's going on with weather patterns is Arizona's in big trouble, Nevada's in big trouble, California's in big trouble, where now you got Grand Coulee Dam has got more water than they can handle because of the heat dome that was over the Banff, British Columbia, which we got a job going up there also. So there is sides of mountains that have never been shy of snow, are shy of snow now. So all that runoff is coming into the Columbia River Basin. So kind of the stuff I've been doing in the last 12 years, I've been working as a safety and environmental officer for a contractor out of St. Louis. They have these patent robots for sandblasting and painting and UHP, high-powered jetting. So as we spend time with these companies, I've developed a new appreciation for water. I never expected to be this dry here when I got back here this time, but this is the stuff I was worried about. When I look at the rivers, like I said, I've been putting a dock in the Little Fork River for 35 years, so it's all about water levels. So when the spring runoff, it's high enough, I can slide the dock in the water. Come fall, if we don't get no rain, it's a little bit of a problem getting it back out. But either way, so I've been fishing and watching. Only one other time I seen the river even near this low. I'm not sure on the date, 76, 77, when the Galvin line was burning. That was the only time I ever seen the Little Fork River slow enough and clear out. Now this, what we got now, is worse than that. This is, there's very little flow. We got fish in pockets dying. Though some of the kids are doing pretty good catching fish. I know they're kayaking and whatever the hell they can get down the river with. But my whole point is, the river as low as it is today, and of course, we could call this 1 year and it's going to be different. But once we lose the hydraulics of the river and all the creeks drain out, we have no pressure to hold back any kind of pond water. We've got watering holes dug all over the property. They're all drying out. So there's a critical thing happening in the river systems. So it was, and I haven't had this conversation for a long time, but Shaky was one person I talked to years ago. And of course, back then we had plenty of water. I was kind of thinking Shaky was a little off the wall himself, but I'm in total agreement with what he was thinking. You know, our river systems are long. They're all tributaries that go on the northern watershed. So when you look at it from that perspective, which I look at, where I'm in Arizona or where the water coming from, this county has an opportunity to check what the elevations are, where the bedrock formations are on the river, and to do a topographical study. So, and I'll just throw this one out. Dead Man's Rapids is 12 miles upriver from my property. That is a bedrock barrier that holds back about 7 foot of water, which is a good fishing hole above Dead Man's. The fact is that's draining down slowly through the little bit of a crevice there is there. So the flow, if we don't get Emira, we had a little rain the other night, but it didn't do nothing. It doesn't even make a puddle on the ground. So nothing's getting to run off. So we're at a point now, the only way to possibly recover the river is having a heavy snowfall. I kind of been a weather watcher my whole life, and I watch it very closely in the job that I do today. I don't see, it's a jet stream issue from my perspective. The jet stream bounced up in the west side, so it's coming down earlier. And if you've been watching our weather at all, most of our rain, our snow, is all going south of us. So the question is that a permanent change that's going to be happening? Well, if you talk to the people out west, they certainly think it's going to be. So here we are. I've been watching snow levels for 30 years. I've been watching rain levels for 30 years. And that's the kind of data I think you guys got to look at. I had a fine presentation made for you. My laptop died 2 weeks ago, so I'm trying to get my new laptop up to speed. But so things happen. But my point is if someone were to do a topographical study of the Big Fork, Black River, shit, we got all kinds of them running. They're all dry, or they're getting there. So if someone could do a topographical study, I know I remember you guys at the Big Fork meeting, if I remember correctly, some 240-some feet of drop. Was it from Big Fork to the Rainy River? My point is that I believe you have the capabilities within the county to do this. I've talked to Pam over there. I don't even know what other resources you guys have. But I'm sure the information is all on a computer somewhere. If it were to look you looked at the river system and you say you take Dead Man's Rapids and say you put a 10-foot dam there, what does that do reservoir size? I mean, this is a computer project is what it is. So I guess all I'm asking is that if you guys think it's something that should be done, that you make a study of the river systems to see if there is any reservoir possibilities. I believe there's a big one above Dead Man's. The river's cut deep. It goes all the way back to Sellers Rapids, which is the next bedrock outcropping, and above that is Samuelson's landing. And they're all opportunities to hold water. You know, I'm not talking about holding them back to Lake Superior here. I'm talking about keeping enough volume in the rivers that we can have water for irrigation if things keep going the wrong way. Number two, that you have fire breaks, which we do not have now. I mean, you can walk across the river about wherever you want. And of course, the even long-term possibilities, if it turns out that there might even be possibilities for power generation, which all of them, there's money coming through infrastructure for that kind of stuff. Minnesota Power is interested in hydros. North States Power or North Star Power, they're all looking for opportunities, and they're all worried about water also. So that's basically, kind of what I wanted to talk. I mean, that's my spiel. I'd really like to see some kind of study, and I don't think this is outside any kind of budget, or someone that you have employed right now should be able to do this.
I was with Commissioner Hanson yesterday.
You were? How's he doing?
Former.
Yeah.
That's what he tells me. I'm retired, but he's still involved in a lot of things.
Yeah.
And he's very knowledgeable. Yeah.
Well, that's my concerns. Like I said, I never dreamt that we'd run out of rain or snow in northern Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I've seen some stuff. Down there in Nevada, California, Arizona. I often wondered how you put 10 million people in the middle of the desert. That was before I understood that they're pumping water 320 miles to them.
It's growing too. I'll tell you, it's building and building. My son was out there.
Well, they're gonna slow down.
Yeah.
The big problem with Lake Mead, and the reason they know it's permanent, not to recover, there's a big floating resort there. I don't know if you guys have ever been there, but the lady that runs it has now lowered it for the third time. And there's no way to recover. It's a 20-year drought that created this. And the reason Mead is so low and the rest aren't, because that is the main controlling reservoir. The problem about they're thinking of changing over to Lake Powell being the main one, because now they're getting water levels down low enough that the intakes to the hydro at Hoover cannot generate. And they lose another 20, 30 feet, they're losing capacity to generate power. Hoover's a big place. We have their contract for doing their lines also.
You mentioned Parker Dam, and
Yep.
We go there every year, and the guy that runs it, he's not there constantly, but we've met him a
Yep.
few times.
Yep.
Nice person. Yeah, and he was saying how he was talking about concerns.
Yep.
with water.
Well, you take the Colorado River, though. 3 years ago, we worked at the Brock Reservoir. It's right on the California-Mexico border. It's the end of the Colorado River. Colorado River disappears. It turns into two canals. One goes to Palm Springs and one goes to Mexicali. I mean, it's the end of the river. Years ago, it used to go to Baja Peninsula. I mean, it's miles and miles away. So the use of the water out there has been the enemy. You know, a snow load on the western side of the mountain is where they get their water from. If the snow load isn't heavy enough, they just keep losing. So they've got some big restrictions coming up. You know, the craziness in California, they had 3 salination plants running on the coast. They shut them all down about 20 years ago because they weren't profitable. Well, now they've got to try to get them going again. And there's an awful waste. There's a salt waste from salination plants too. So anyway, that's kind of there. And like I said, when I drove home from Washington, I just came back August 1st working at Grand Coulee Dam. There was nothing brown nothing green till I got back to this county. At North Dakota, Montana, if they weren't watering it, it was brown. It was gone. The other thing that's happening, which is in Minnesota too, the circular irrigation, I mean, you see them all over in the fields. I mean, they just punch in a well and away they go. Well, I don't know White Bear Lake is down about 4.5 feet. Now it's recovering because so many local farmers got permits to punch them wells in to irrigate their fields. They were into the aquifer, which is the supply for White Bear Lake. So there's little pockets of this happening all over. You know, I would hate to think, I mean, I got alfalfa fields that look horrible. I mean, we planted them all early spring and nothing happened with them. I mean, some sprouted, but they're all going brown now. I would imagine, you know, rain has been good in this part of the county, bad in this part, and absent in other parts. It's kind of you don't get a big shower to come through no more to cover the whole county. It's so spotty, which is another change in weather patterns. I don't know if there's someone in the weather world that talks to you folks, but, you know, everyone's saying, oh, climate change or whatever. All I do is just watch the water that's around me. And I see different parts of the country. The Tennessee Valley Authority, they did a long time ago, dammed up rivers, made lakes and water supply for them. And they just got to learn a few things about keeping their state a little cleaner. If I noticed anything around that part of the area, I mean, they don't adopt and clean highways, and they got these private little dumps all over by streams, and so they've got a little bit of development to do yet. But all the water there, Ohio, Missouri River, Mississippi, has all been experiencing a lot of floods. There's a lot of crap in the river, and that's all flowing out. And that's the southern watershed. Anchor Lake, you know where that is, right down here on the other side by Cotton. Yeah, there's a 3-way divide. We got water flowing east, the Great Lakes. We got water flowing south, down to the Mississippi. And we got the water on the northern end. If we don't hold the water, it goes to Hudson Bay. Now, there's one other point on this that I would like to make. A guy by the name of Steve Summey is an engineer, hydrologist. He works on all kinds of dams. He's working with the state of North Dakota and Minnesota over the Red River issues. And of course, what they do there to protect their floods, they're talking about putting floodplains up. And of course, that's why they got rich fields. It flooded for many, many years when we didn't restrict the river. There's even a possibility, if we could hold some of the water back in the spring, we could help their flooding issues. So there's some opportunities, and Steve Summey was the guy that talked to me about that. Good friend of mine. He lives in Arizona, so he's on the pump water trail down there. So I don't know, unless you got any questions. I mean, that's what I wanted to say, and if there was some kind of effort to study this, like I say, I'm sure you guys have the talents within the county here somewhere, whether it's forestry or whoever's got all these maps, someone does. It would be nice to see if we looked at the river now and we looked at it in different stages of where a possible reservoir could be, and just do it on the computer. Then you guys would be able to see if it's there. If it's there, then the chore would begin.
Your point about, we had a wedding out in Montana, Columbia Falls, Montana, so we drove from here.
Yeah.
And went on Highway 2 out of Bemidji, and it goes right to Columbia Falls.
Yep.
There was nothing, to your point, nothing green from there until we got to Columbia Falls, because then you're going up in the mountains.
Yep.
It was, and all the farms and everything else were just brown.
Yep.
It was very interesting to see, gosh.
I mean, the whole half of the country looks that way over there.
Yeah.
Go on the other side, you know, go to the east side, they're swimming.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know, how do you read all of that for the future? I guess I'm only thinking about Koochiching County. I'm going to retire and come back here someday. And I'd like to see some water in the rivers.
We hope you come back and stay here.
Well, yeah.
I see that guy in the corner, Mr. Chair, is trying to get you.
Yeah, I just would, when you talked about a data set, FEMA is in the process of updating the flood mapping in Koochiching County, and you guys are aware of that, but part of that process was, you know, studying the elevations and taking all the data that we have available based on LiDAR and all of that. So I know FEMA and the DNR have been working with the county to update our flood mapping, and so maybe that data set could be used, and maybe even the contractor that they hired, that FEMA hired, might be able to provide something related to that. I'm not sure, but it's just a thought.
Yeah, I was going to ask that if they could actually kind of separate that information.
It seems like, you know, all the elevation information is there. I'm not sure what other data they might need. But the question could be asked anyways.
Were we going to have some LiDAR done here this year? Or did
I'm
we
sure
already, were we going to have some LiDAR flyovers this year, or has that already happened?
I think forestry and through JS had some additional stuff that was going on, but I'm not clear on that new data. But it's supposed to be higher accuracy, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Any questions for Mr. Jackson?
Well, yeah, I have a question. How is it you don't have any gray hair? I mean, what? You still got, it looks great. I'm impressed.
Are you looking for the secret or what?
Yeah, well, you must be living right or doing something out there.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. Keep moving, I guess.
I'm glad you came in.
Well, I'm glad you guys give me a chance to talk to you. Because this is coming.
Yeah, no,
You know, and I don't expect a lot of buy-in from DNR and the people that believe they own the water. But I know the creeks and the snow and rain that flows off my property at one time was mine.
yeah.
You know, I hate to see it just disappear and go to Hudson Bay if we need it. And at some point, I mean, if there's no path forward here, at some point it's going to become an emergency for us. And of course, I could be wrong. We could get 100 inches of snow again this winter, which we haven't seen for 20-some years.
Yeah.
You know, if you just look at snowfall, you know it's not coming next spring. It ain't going to be a big runoff. Like I said, the runoffs used to be big enough, it'd come 22 feet high at the Little Fork River. I could just float my dock in. I've done that for 15 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So volume of water has went down and it all disappears. I mean, and it's not about eliminating a river and stopping the flow, it's about building a reservoir and continue the flow. And just hold some water and let it flow. And my looking at it is, my computer skills are a little limited, but what I've looked at topographically, I mean, there's going to be a couple hunt shacks might have lakeshore property, and there are going to be a couple of them we'd flood out. But, I mean, some of them are county leases, some are MOPUS leases, some are private property. I mean, that's, if I was one of them SWAT shacks back in the swamp there, and that water level would come up to my edge, I wouldn't mind that at all. But of course, you'll have challenges from loggers. You know, the reality is, for 100 years, we've been trying to drain this county so we could get the wood. Water was the enemy.
Yeah, I get back a number of years ago when Chuck Lepper was with me.
Yep.
We had a group come here and to all the district meetings, and what they were pushing was the feasibility of a pipeline from Lake Superior down to Arizona.
Yeah, they got another one from Lake Michigan. That one almost went, but they were down 3.5 feet, so they were saying, what are we giving it away for?
Just think if they had done that, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, in the end, it didn't go anywhere, but probably a good thing, because water is a...
Well, the circular wells that are putting in for irrigation, they have really went rampant. They do the same thing, Nebraska, Kansas, they're all doing it. And it's an easy permit, you just get a well permit. The problem is, it's tapping into an aquifer, and it's someplace wells for cities.
That's the big circles you see when you fly over.
Yes, 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 yeah. They're punching them in all over. Minnesota's doing it too. You know, and what it does is give them multiple crops. Instead of just a 1 or 2 cuts, even in Minnesota, they might get a 3rd or 4th cut. But the acreage they're doing is so limited that, and it's a ton, lots of water.
Yeah.
You know, so I just know what's happening because I get in this conversation all the time, but just would like you guys to get it on the radar and see if you can take a look at it.
You're still traveling then a lot, huh?
Oh yeah, safety environmental officer for confined space work, that's all I do. So,
You must enjoy it, maybe.
well, I enjoy moving. Maybe afraid to stay too still. But anyway, I gave Jenny a letter, kind of had all my stuff on it, so I appreciate the time, and you guys keep her running, huh?
Well, thank you for coming in, I appreciate it.
You bet. All right.
So
Later. Good seeing you. You bet. Thanks, man. Oh, I'll take that jacket. It might snow tomorrow.
we can only hope.
At this time, we're open for public comment. Is there anyone here for public comments in person or online? No public comment. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
I'll move, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Ady.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Stoy. All those in favor of adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.